It's time for another episode of Corner of the Galaxy from the Box, the show that gets you behind the scenes of the LA Galaxy and into the minds of soccer reporters and MLS experts. Your hosts for the day are Corner of the Galaxy's Josh Guesman and LA Times soccer reporter Kevin Baxter. Let's start the show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Corner of the Galaxy from the Box on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm your host, Josh Guesman, coming to you from COG Studios on Monday, October 21st, following the LA Galaxy's 2-1 win over Minnesota United in the first round of the MLS playoffs. That means that the LA Galaxy will now come back home and then travel all the way up to Banc of California Stadium, where they'll take on LAFC on Thursday night. So what possibly could be the biggest game in Major League Soccer history, very close upon us as we get you ready for that game and talk about the Minnesota game. So that's really where our main focus is tonight. We're going to have a lot to talk to you about in terms of, Galaxy news and some quotes and a whole bunch of things that, of course, are all leading towards this game on Thursday night, 7:30 p.m. kickoff time. All right, to help me do that, the man who just arrived back from Minnesota. He wasn't on the charter. He didn't get that nice charter flight. He had to fly commercial. It included a stop. It was not his most favorite trip, I'm sure, but welcome back to the show and back into Los Angeles, Mr. Kevin Baxter. Kev, how's it going, buddy?
Yeah, forget the Galaxy charter. You didn't even let me use the Corner of the Galaxy corporate jet.
Yeah,
so,
no.
Yes, I had a connection in Salt Lake. I may be going back to Salt Lake next week if the Galaxy win and Salt Lake beats Seattle. But, I mean, the connecting flight, I think I came back on the Wright brothers plane. It was rough.
Hey, a little bouncy weather out there. It was raining in Minnesota, which, by the way, it held off from raining.
It was bad, too. It was the kind of rain where, if you're standing too close to the street corner, when the bus comes by, you get completely sprayed. It was like, and this is Minnesota. I mean, it rains there, so they're used to it. But there was so much rain in such a short period of time, there were huge puddles in the street.
We knew you were there covering it. The rain held off, at least for the Galaxy game, and I guess the field sort of held up somewhat, although I think there were still some complaints. But before we even get into the game, I want to talk real quickly, just from an observation, sort of, a baseline standard here. This weekend was some of the most exciting soccer I have ever seen in Major League Soccer, ever. As far as long as I've been watching it, since, really 2008, 2009, 2007, in there, since I've been watching Major League Soccer, this weekend was the most exciting that I have ever seen games, and I don't think it's a fluke, Kevin. I think we have to tip our hat a little bit to how it played out in terms of the actual format, the single elimination format that people have been sort of harping on or liking or not liking or, talking about this whole thing. This weekend was outstanding for me.
Well, I talked to Mark Abbott, who is the CEO of Major League Soccer, about a week ago, maybe 10 days ago, about the playoff format. Now, first of all, this would have been the knockout round, the first stage. So this would have been single elimination anyways. But he talked about the playoff format. I'd always been under the impression that the two-leg format actually favored the stronger team because if there was a fluke goal, you made a mistake in the first game, you got a second game to make up for it. Major League Soccer actually has some statistics to prove that is not accurate, that it's close, but actually the best team wins more often in a single elimination format. But what Mark Abbott told me is, yes, they've come back, contracted the playoff schedule to fit it in between the two international breaks. That's why they did it. He said, but they also studied a bunch of various formats for more than a year. And he said, even if we hadn't had to compact the schedule, we decided that single elimination format was the best. And the reason he determined that, or the league determined that, is exactly what you, Josh Guesman, were just talking about. He said in a two-leg format, sometimes the first game is very slow. Nobody really gets aggressive. No one plays off the front foot because they're waiting for that second game. And he said sometimes the second game doesn't mean anything if the first game was a blowout because that second game is meaningless at that point. So he said by telling teams, look, 90 minutes or maybe 120, that's going to decide it. There's no second chances. This is it. It's all for all the marbles. He said he thought that would be a more exciting format. That's what Major League Soccer decided to do. And they were right, weren't they?
Yeah, they got it right. It was 100%. You go and look at the scores. I mean, there's one game that there were a couple games that are decided by one goal. Actually, a bunch of games that were decided by one goal, but
five of them.
Yeah, only one game did one team fail to score. That was in Atlanta and New England, and unfortunately, Bruce Arena goes out. Atlanta United survived that game really more than I think anything. A 1-0 win over New England Revolution in Atlanta. I think that it was one of the few games that didn't have rain, mostly because they were under cover there. Yeah, they were they were indoors. That usually helps. You had Seattle and FC Dallas, who had a crazy game, a 4-3 ending there. There was lots of rain in that. As much as you sort of sit there and say, oh, well, maybe Seattle struggled with Dallas a little more, Dallas played well and came back, and just so many things that you saw in there. I mean, even the Toronto game, Kevin, this game shows up 5-1 on the scoreboard, but it was 1-1 with DC United scoring, I think, in stoppage time of the first
94th minute. Yeah. That's the only game not decided by one goal. It's decided by 3 goals, but it went to extra time.
It was 5-1. It was decided by 4 goals, right? 5-1 in that game.
5-1.
Yeah. So I mean, that's crazy because Toronto scored 4 goals in extra time, which is crazy. Real Salt Lake 2-1 over Portland. That game was ugly. Lots of rain, lots of coming down sideways, all sorts of crazy stuff there. RSL looked like the better team in that one, and they ended up winning 2-1, so that was fine. I think the craziest, most entertaining game I watched all weekend was Philadelphia and New York Red Bulls. New York Red Bulls were winning this game 2-0 and 3-1, and Philadelphia tied it 3-3 at the end of extra time, and then or at the end of regular time, then goes into extra time and gets a deflected ball that creeps in. It's just a crazy goal, and the Union fans were just nuts in the rain. Just so much fun. And then you got it finished off with a game that sort of had a slow burn on it, Kevin. It wasn't the most exciting game, absolutely not. It wasn't great soccer through the first 45 minutes. In fact, I don't think it was great soccer through 90 minutes. But the LA Galaxy getting by Minnesota United 2-1, goals from Jonathan Dos Santos, goals from Sebastian Lletget. Zlatan Ibrahimovic doesn't score in this game, which is, if you thought about the playoffs, and everybody, including myself, was leading up, Kev, you said, it's the playoffs. Zlatan's going to show up and it's going to be huge, but that's not what you saw. In fact, I don't know. I don't keep track of bad games, like where people play really bad games. You go, oh, that was their worst game. It's kind of hard for my brain to remember those things. But I don't know that if I remember Zlatan being less effective on the pitch for the LA Galaxy.
Do you know he had 47% passing efficiency in the first half, missed more than half his passes, and afterward he said he was exhausted. He said it was the toughest game the Galaxy had played this year. It was the toughest game he had this year. Afterwards, he admitted he was exhausted, but so ineffective, right? I mean,
right.
I thought it was. You said you didn't want to criticize players for having a bad game. I thought it was his worst game of the year, and I don't think there's really a close second. And I think Zlatan probably would go along with that too. But here's the point: he figured in the goal that got everything started. Sebastian Lletget's goal came off a rebound of a Zlatan shot. Now, it was a terrible shot. It was a soft shot, went right into a defender, but the rebound bounced out to Sebastian Lletget, and he scored. No, Zlatan does not get an assist for that, and he didn't mean for that sequence of events to take place. But I think it just proves how important he is. He makes things happen. You could say it was an accident, but Zlatan's shot led to the first goal. That opened things up. Minnesota had to open up a little bit. Then they got Galaxy got the second goal, the Dos Santos goal, which proved to be the game winner. So even when he's playing his worst game of the year, Zlatan seems to make things happen.
Galaxy were 1-7-1 coming into this game in 2019 in games that Ibrahimovic played and did not score. All right, so 1-7-1 in games in which he played but did not score. And then he goes in and does not score. Do you know what the other win was that he didn't score in? Kevin, do you remember?
I do not.
Cincinnati, the Cincinnati game.
Oh,
now here's
they didn't really need his help in that one.
Yeah, well, it was 2-0, but I figured that they probably did need his help, but the Galaxy survived that one. But when you go back to the things that sort of draw similarities to me, the only thing I can draw a parallel between a Cincinnati game, which Cincinnati's not a good team, and a Minnesota game, which Minnesota played very well. I'll tell you about the better team losing here in a second, but the Galaxy or Zlatan in Cincinnati, Kevin, was cautious with the surface, right? I mean, that was Cincinnati. It's on turf. We all saw Zlatan. He was not feeling that game. He was kind of managing that game not to get injured, in my mind. I almost feel like there was a little bit of that in this Minnesota game as well. He complained, or at least it was in passing, but he still talked about the field not being great. And he remembers the last time he played on it that large pieces of that field were coming up. In my mind, this could have been Zlatan sort of saving himself, which may not make Galaxy fans feel all that great about it, but I feel like he was approaching it more cautiously than he has in other games. And this is, I don't want to just throw the game plan out, and I think we'll talk about the game plan here in a second, but the game plan also affected how many chances Zlatan had and sort of where it was as well.
Yeah, he was playing wide for a lot of the game. I don't know if you could see that on TV, and I do think you're right about the turf. Zlatan talks about how his knee is healed. He had massive reconstructive knee surgery 2 years ago. I had knee surgery about 100 years ago, and I can tell you that there are still times when I don't want to push on it, and I'm not playing a Major League Soccer playoff game. So, if that's maybe it was subconscious, maybe he was doing it on purpose, but if he was a little worried about pushing off on that very, very soft turf, you saw Daniel Steres, go down on his butt at one point. It's hard to blame Zlatan knowing what he's gone through, and he's 38.
Yeah, he's not a spring chicken. I am also 38, and I am not a spring chicken, so I feel that. By the way, this is like the last year, Kevin, where like the big guys on the team for the LA Galaxy are going to be like the same age as me. This is it.
Well, how come you haven't scored 500 goals?
Yeah.
You're the same age. I mean, you've had that same opportunity, right?
As I've said many times, I have 700 shows. How many does Zlatan have? Not 700. So
snap.
Yeah, I know.
Snap. Good comeback.
Yeah, well, that was my only comeback I had. Because Zlatan and his accomplishments and what I've done kind of make me feel like maybe I haven't done all that much. But that's okay. We don't need this to be a therapy session. Let's get to the better team loss. This is what I heard. This is what I heard.
Taylor Twellman said that.
Yeah, Taylor said it. By the way, Taylor and I are good friends and have been for a while. I've actually been texting him for most of the day. I thought he did a fine job. I have no problems with him criticizing the Galaxy. I think most of this league is criticizing the Galaxy because they think that Zlatan Ibrahimovic is the person who has to carry this team. And in this particular game, guess what? Zlatan couldn't carry the team. He helped, but he couldn't carry the team. I have a stat though that I have to get out. This is one of my favorite stats that I think I've ever put together. Since Christian Pavone joined the LA Galaxy, Kevin, the LA Galaxy have now, as a collective, outscored Zlatan Ibrahimovic. So the LA Galaxy collective has 16 goals, and Zlatan Ibrahimovic has 14 goals. All right, so every time people tell you that the LA Galaxy are just Zlatan Ibrahimovic, you can go ahead and point to the 16 goals that have come from other places besides him since Christian Pavone joined and really started to open this up. So that was my one thing. But anyway, you were talking about the better team loss.
I was just going to say on that, I just want to say Adrian Heath, the Minnesota coach, talking about Pavone, sort of chuckled when he talked about the Galaxy adding Pavone, and that just goes to that what you were talking about, the anti-Galaxy bias throughout the league, or seeming anti-Galaxy bias. Remember, it was always around with Bruce Arena. Are they breaking the rules? Are they skirting the rules? How do they sign all these players? It's back now. That that take on how did they get a player like Christian Pavone, a World Cup player from Argentina? How did they get him when they already had 3 DPs and they had very little cap space? So that's the argument you're going to hear next.
It's there. It's been there, and that's fine. It's one of those things. It's like, blame the Galaxy for the deal that they pulled off. Quite honestly, I think it's a crazy deal that they pulled off for Christian Pavone. But anyway, going to the better team lost. Here's why the better team didn't lose in this game. The better team actually won. The LA Galaxy were the better team than Minnesota. And there's one simple reason. Minnesota may have had slightly more possession. Minnesota may have had slightly better chances. Remember, Zlatan had a really good chance that he missed. So there's a couple chances in there that you could say, okay, the Galaxy, screwed up. But if you look at Minnesota and them screwing up the chances, this is why they're not the better team. The better team actually puts the chances away. And in this game, yes, Minnesota was the quote-unquote better team because they had more possession and they were creating more dangerous looks. And the Galaxy defense survived with some emergency defending and survived with misses from Minnesota. All those things are true. But the better team won this game because the Galaxy capitalized on the mistakes that Minnesota made and they capitalized on the chances that they had. If you look, shots on goal, the LA Galaxy actually have more shots on goal than Minnesota, despite the fact that Minnesota slightly outshoots the Galaxy by 3 goals.
16 shots, but only 3 on target.
Only 3 on target, 13 shots for the Galaxy, 6 on target. You look at all of these, and again, 11 shots off target for Minnesota. The better team doesn't put 11 shots off target in this game. So I respect Adrian Heath. I really like him. But to say, and he wasn't the one, by the way, who said that, the better team lost tonight. He said we were the better team for large stretches, which I would agree with that. But ultimately, it came down to the Galaxy's talent, and the Galaxy's talent won this game for them. And that didn't mean Zlatan Ibrahimovic. That meant Jonathan Dos Santos, and that meant Sebastian Lletget, and that meant Roman Alessandrini, who you certainly have to talk about as well. But all of these things.
Perry Kitchen.
By the way, you talk about. I didn't think anybody had great games in this. I thought Jonathan Dos Santos and Perry Kitchen had the best games out of anybody who played tonight. or on
Back
Sunday
line,
night.
I thought the back line was solid. I mean, I know they gave up a lot of shots, but the back line was solid. You know where most of Minnesota's shots went? I've never seen that. I mean, you said they missed on 13 shots, and they did, but I've never seen that many go like high up into the stands behind the net. I mean, I've seen that some go in there sometimes or miss the net wide, but it looked like these guys were trying out to be field goal kickers for the Vikings. I mean, a lot of those shots were like 50 rows back. It was incredible.
Yeah, no, there were a lot of them. Another sort of high look at this game, and before we start like really diving into the details, the Galaxy were the only lower seed / road team to advance to the conference.
Lower sleeve?
Yeah, the lower sleeve. I have no idea. I don't know. It's my tongue's tired apparently. Galaxy were the only lower seed / road team to advance to the conference semifinals. That was it. Every other one, higher seed won, which is why we'll tell you that the Galaxy have no chance of hosting any Western Conference game at all the way through the Western Conference Finals, and have the slimmest of chances right now to host an MLS Cup, which would be if Toronto FC advances all the way through to the Eastern Conference, from the Eastern Conference, and plays in the MLS Cup, and the Galaxy advance all the way through to get to the MLS Cup on their side. That's the only way the Galaxy can play a home game throughout the rest of this postseason, and that's it. But the lower seed winning here was, I think this game was the closest game out of all the games that were going to be played, and certainly the 4 versus 5 already lends it to that. But the Galaxy, had the best chance of winning, and I think that as a road team, they had the best chance of winning. I think that, taking it wasn't that much of a surprise. I think people somewhat wanted to expect this, but you can't expect anything from a Galaxy team that's so inconsistent. That's my take.
Well, like you said, they did what they had to do to win, and that's sort of the mark of a veteran team. I thought, I don't know what it looked like on TV, but because you get a much wider view when you're at the game. I thought Minnesota, this was the franchise's first time in the playoffs. I thought they showed a lot of sort of opening night jitters. They just did not look settled, especially in the first half. And I do think the field played a little bit in that. For people who don't know, that this field is it's a brand new stadium. They had drainage problems. The field was terrible when the Galaxy played there the first time. Zlatan took a slide and pulled up a huge divot, and after that, he just basically did not run anymore. And Julian Araujo got actually hurt during the game. So after the regular season ended, Minnesota United tore up the turf, repaired the drainage system, put new grass in that they got from a Wisconsin sod farm, put everything, tramped it all down, and then played a college football game on Saturday night, about 24 hours before the soccer match. And the college football players were complaining about it. The thing with laying down new grass is that's awesome, but the needs to take root, and that takes more than 3 weeks. And if you go play a college football game on it, it's not going to take root. So, Daniel Steres went down at one point. You could see just before halftime there were huge holes in the middle of the field around the center circle. The field was not as bad as it was when the Galaxy played there in April in the scoreless draw, but it definitely was not good. And, I do think it used to be back in baseball, if a team had a lot of guys who hit ground balls or bunted a lot, the grounds crew would leave the grass in the infield very high. And if you were a team that didn't do that, then if you had a good infield, then the grass would be low because you wanted to get the ball to your infielders quicker. In other words, the field was tailored to your team. I think Minnesota United, they won't say this, but I think Minnesota United definitely tailored the field to its team. This is a great defensive team that doesn't score a lot of goals. What do you want for a team like that? You want a difficult surface that's very plodding, slow the opponent down, and slug it out in a low-scoring game. The field kind of lends itself to that. I'm not saying that Minnesota United went into the season with the idea of doing that, but I think once they realized they had field problems, they decided they would use it to their advantage.
It played better than I thought it was going to overall, and I think even Adrian Heath afterwards said, that he thought the groundskeepers did an amazing job getting it to the point to where it was. But let's be honest, it was not a great surface. Let's go into the LA Galaxy and the lineup that was put out, because this was sort of the first shot at Guillermo Barros Schelotto in the playoffs. How was he going to adjust? What was he going to do? Would he tweak the defense? Would he do anything? And with guys coming back healthy, how much do you put into or how much stock do you put into some of these guys that possibly weren't 100%? I mean, there was a lot of questions around this. So the big sort of the two things that stood out on this was Perry Kitchen being placed in the midfield. Perry Kitchen having not played since August.
August 11th, last appearance.
So Perry Kitchen gets a start in midfield, which is very defensive. We all agree that's a defensive move. And then Pipo Gonzalez gets put into place. And Kevin, you talked about a little bit about this, but Pipo Gonzalez at right back. So no Felcher. You didn't have any Shelvick in there. So you don't have the speed the LA Galaxy usually have on the outside in order to get up and whip in crosses. That's not happening in this game. You have Dave Romney at left back. You had Diego Polenta in the center. You had Dan Stairs back there. David Bingham obviously in goal. Jonathan Dos Santos and Perry Kitchen as the two central defensive midfielders. Sebastian Lletget playing as the central attacking midfielder, that cam. And then you had Christian Pavone, and you had Uriel Antuna and Zlatan Ibrahimovic. So, if you look at this is probably the most defensive lineup the Galaxy could really put in for this game and still think that they had a chance at getting forward enough.
Well, what Guillermo said afterwards is, yes, he wanted to play a standard back line. He said, I didn't want to have wingers. That's why Rolf didn't play. I didn't want to have wingers. I wanted to have 4 defenders because he was looking for a defensive game too, whether it was just the way Minnesota plays or whether he took the field into account too. But he said, we're going to be totally conservative on the back line. We're not going to push forward. No wingers, no one moving up and down the sidelines. That's why he went with that back line. The introduction of Perry Kitchen was pretty interesting. He didn't have Joan Corona. Obviously, he's not going to use Servando Carrasco for 90 minutes. So Perry Kitchen gets his first appearance this August 11th. He played box to box. And Guillermo said the idea was to move Jonathan more forward and get him involved in the attack. What happens? Jonathan Dos Santos scores the goal that wins the game. We had, as you said, Alessandrini coming off the bench. He actually did get the assist on that and almost scored a goal. So he, his comeback, that was his first game since knee surgery in April. So he actually played very well. But Perry Kitchen, he went 90 plus, played the whole game. Again, box to box, sprinting up and down the field all night long. And really added some crunch to that midfield as a defensive midfielder. He was very Minnesota definitely knew that he was on the field. A really great effort by him. I never thought that he'd be able to go 90 minutes just coming back. I mean, the weather probably helped a little bit, and he was fit, but still, it's tough to go 90 minutes your first time out in 2 months.
Yeah, it certainly is. And again, it's that defensive shape that the Galaxy adopted here. I said going into this game that the Galaxy needed to play this game a lot like the Real Salt Lake game. In my mind, winning against Real Salt Lake on the road was exactly equal to what they were trying to accomplish in this first round. And part of that was to be conservative defensively. Now, I also said that I thought the Galaxy should come out and go balls to the wall as soon as the whistle blew because I felt Minnesota would sit back and sort of be, a little nervy whenever it started. Well, it turned out the Galaxy were a little nervy to start as well. So, everything was very slow. Everything was very plodding. The passing was not good, whether that's field or not or whether that's nerves. That's on both sides. I'll tell you right now, the offense did not look like it was in sync at all. You talked about Ibra. You talked about Christian Pavone. Uriel Antuna was not really there, trying to get Sebastian Lletget into that. Sebastian Lletget scored a goal, but quite honestly, it might have been his one or two good, best moves he made of the night. And certainly that goal, Kevin, has to be sort of looked at in a certain way as a total team success. And one of the reasons that's such a success is that the Galaxy throughout this year have struggled with making late runs into the box. We've seen it over and over again where balls have been cut back and there's been nobody there. And in this particular case, the ball is cut back by Antuna. But Zlatan hits it. It hits the defender. It bounces off. But it's a late run from Sebastian Lletget that comes in. It's that second run coming into the center of the box to where, he can pick up a rebound or he can get a pass or, it's that layoff that's there at all the time. So seeing Sebastian Lletget score that, it has to be, a super boost to the LA Galaxy mentality. And then you go from that into bringing Roman Alessandrini onto this field. And this is a huge moment. I mean, I think I've said a bunch of times that I felt like Galaxy fans were sort of, pinning their hopes on Roman Alessandrini too much, and that they couldn't count on him to just deliver after being off for so long, Kevin. And I still feel like the Galaxy are looking at him like, Kirk Gibson and the Dodgers, like, oh, he's going to come up and hit a home run and all this stuff. And you don't need that. You need a guy who's going to go out there and give you some base hits, maybe a double, bat in some runs in scoring position, that type of thing, to carry my baseball analogy to its finish there. And that's what you got got from Ramon Alessandrini in this. Guillermo talked about it afterwards, and he talked about how, people thought maybe they would second guess. Even Taylor Twellman on the broadcast said maybe they would second guess the sub of bringing Ramon Alessandrini, an offensive sub, on right after the Galaxy had scored. And for Guillermo, it was all about, Kevin, he said, was, it was about controlling the ball. And we felt like, Uriel Antuna is faster and he can be more dangerous offensively, but we want to control the ball now. And for the Galaxy, it was about putting Ramon Alessandrini on that field. And what did you get out of Ramon? You got some possession. You got an assist to Jonathan Dos Santos, although it's not the clearest assist in the world. It's still an assist. You got a shot on goal from Ramon Alessandrini. I thought he might even score a goal, which really would have made me look like a moron.
Yeah, he thought he was going to too as well. He was talking about that a lot after the game.
Yeah, you got to talk to him. So, I mean, and I think you're the only person who talked to Ramon Alessandrini because we don't have it on our quote sheet.
No, I was the only one that talked to him. He said that he was exhausted. He said the first minute he came on. And by the way, when you talk about the substitutions and Taylor Twellman talking about, do you want to bring on an offensive substitution? Ramon Alessandrini was standing next to the fourth official when Sebastian Lletget scored. If there had been a stoppage in play before that goal, he would have come on. He was ready to come on. And I think when the goal was scored, I think Guillermo he had a strategy and he wasn't going to change at that point. So he let Ramon go back in the game or go into the game. So Ramon was coming on and the goal happened and they brought him on anyways. But yeah, afterwards he talked about the goal he didn't score. He also had an interesting quote, which I actually asked him to repeat it. I wanted to make sure I got it right because I know this is going to be billboard material. But I said, how, now you play LAFC. And he said, I think those guys are afraid of us. And they said, what? And he said, yeah, I think those guys are afraid of us because they've never beaten us. I think LAFC is afraid of the Galaxy. And then he said, we're gonna go out and show them, who owns LA. And it's like, wow, really? It's like, this guy hasn't played a game in 6 months, comes on, gives an assist for the game-winning goal, and then starts talking trash. So he is definitely into game mode already.
Yeah, I was going to say, also Jonathan Dos Santos actually, I don't know if he meant it as talking trash, but he came across as it, at least as it was translated. He said they asked him about on facing LAFC next after this game, and he goes, it will be a great match. I think the whole world was waiting for this game. By the way, I like the fact that he says, I think the whole world was waiting for this game. I don't know if that just feeds into the biggest MLS game in the history of MLS coming up or what, but it feels like
it was not on the front page in Bangladesh.
Well, you just wait till it's still early. Wait till that Wednesday preview. I'm sure in Bangladesh they'll get all over it.
By the way, I need to tell you this: the Minnesota Star Tribune, the Vikings played a game yesterday. They played against the Bears or Lions in Detroit, so it was a black and blue division game, big game for the Vikings. The Minnesota Star Tribune did a playoff wrap, meaning that they had their sports section, but it was wrapped by a special edition of the playoff game with pictures and several stories about Minnesota United's first playoff game. So that was pretty interesting, and I hope people in LA are paying attention to that because we should do the same thing here.
Yeah, I agree. And let's get to the quote. He goes, I think the whole world was waiting for this game. I do not think they have the desire. In the last matches, they could not win. Anything can happen in the playoffs. Everything is 50-50. We are playing at their field against the best MLS team, in my opinion, and everyone else in the world's opinion. So again, global, first of all, from Jonathan Dos Santos. He's speaking to the world whenever he speaks. And he says that LAFC does not have the desire, which is again, fighting words, Kevin. Fighting words right now after they're tired. I don't know
who didn't talk trash? Guillermo didn't talk trash, but he was dismissive. He was very funny. John Rojas, who was there, used to work in LA, asked Guillermo, he was working for MLS.com, and he asked Guillermo, LAFC best, single season record ever. Carlos Vela 34 goals. They won the Supporter Shield. And Guillermo just said, yes, those are the statistics. And then he moved on. It's like, those are just numbers. And the guy who would not take the bait, because let's face it, after every game, who do you go to for a quote? You go to Zlatan. And
right.
So that just seemed like a softball to him. Like, hey, you're going to play LAFC. Zlatan would not go there. He was like, it should be a good game. This is the game we wanted. It's going to be a good game. They have a very good team. He would not take the bait.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this. It reminds me of whenever the reporters were talking to him before the last LAFC game, right? And he came out and he was very short, he was very quick, and he was very measured. And so I just think this is his way of sort of coming out and being like, oh, okay, this is a big game now. We know it is. And he doesn't talk smack before the big. He talks smack about every other game, but the really big ones, Kevin, he seems to lay off a little bit, and he's like, okay, it's coming. And it's just, I think it's the focus part of it. I think that's how he goes.
You and I talked about this earlier. We saw that Thursday before the team left for Minnesota, when there was a media scrum with Zlatan and Larry Morgan and I tried to get him into a good mood and made a couple jokes and tried to. He never looked up, never looked down at us. He stared straight ahead. His answers were all 1 and 2 words. They were very terse, not disagreeable, not angry, but he didn't engage in any kind of conversation or hijinks or like he usually does. This was Thursday before the Minnesota game. I've only seen him do that one other time this year to that degree, and that was before the LAFC game at LAFC. So when he decides to put his game face on, it's kind of terrifying. It really is, because it's not what you expect.
It's unsettling. It is. It's a little more like, oh, okay, this is it's real now. This is actually going on. Anyway, so the LA Galaxy, you look at this game, and again, we talked about the changes made, and I think for the most part, Guillermo got it right. I mean, really, they put 4 center backs on that back line: Dave Romney, Diego Polenta, Dan Steres, and then, of course, Pipo Gonzalez on the right. Gonzalez looked lost on the right-hand side, and I agree with the broadcast, and I agree just watching it, and everybody else saw that as well. But he also made some emergency defending look pretty good. He liked to tuck inside, which was probably okay. He didn't get burned too many times around that edge, so I mean, overall, the Minnesota was really attacking the left-hand side against Disco Dave Romney. That's his new nickname, by the way. I didn't know if you know. We gave Eric and I gave him that nickname while we were watching the game on Sunday. Disco Dave Romney, because he likes to dance with the defenders, right? And he's like, "Bring it on, let's dance," right? That's how he goes. So Disco Dave Romney over there was really where they were attacking and trying to put the crosses in and doing all that. So. For me, this game, in sort of a wrap-up, is looking at it and saying the Galaxy didn't play their best, but they played according to a game plan that is something that they needed to do. It was a conservative approach. They approached it well, and in the second half, that's when things changed. That's when Guillermo flipped a switch, and I don't know if it was a rope-a-dope, sort of like, hey, we're not going to attack, and if you look at the possession in this, it only favors Minnesota by 3%. So really, it's an even game when you look at possession. But it was one of those things where it was like, okay, now we're going to change. And in the second half, you saw the Galaxy press a little bit higher with Jonathan Dos Santos. You saw the restraint put on guys like Diego Polenta lifted a little bit. Sure, it was defend first. And I think that was the mind everybody was going through, is defend first, defend first. And that's why I think you see, Zlatan Ibrahimovic calling it one of their most difficult games, is they had to be a defense-first team and then rely on the talent they had to open that game up. So it was about pressing higher up. It was about turning the ball over in the midfield. It's about, Jonathan Dos Santos pressuring guys into mistakes. And Adrian Heath acknowledged that. He goes, I know what happens after they get that goal. Now all of a sudden you're doing all the things that you're trying to do too much, and you can't concentrate on the same things that were getting you the success to begin with. And so it was that panic from Minnesota United that allowed the second goal. And Jonathan Dos Santos, please, I think Galaxy fans are begging, shoot that ball every time. Jonathan Dos Santos is a dangerous player. He's a dangerous player for Mexico. He's a dangerous player for the LA Galaxy. His defense is outstanding. He should have won Defender of the Year, and he didn't. By the way, that was a travesty. I'll tell you right now.
Yeah, I think I really.
But we lost you. We lost you.
Okay. Let me know when I'm back.
Yeah, you are. I got you.
Okay.
Hold on.
I'll just pick that up again.
Yep. Go ahead in 3. Do you know where you're going?
I'm just going to start with I really believe.
Okay. 3, 2, and 1.
Yeah, I really believe there was some ballot box stuffing going on there. I don't know who counts the votes. I know that when I turned my ballot in, I got a response from the Galaxy PR staff asking me a question about my vote. Not question it, but just, did you know that you can vote for, a central defensive midfielder as Defender of the Year or whatever. Diego, I have not spoken to not one person in the media that voted for Diego Polenta as Defender of the Year, and I'm wondering if he has some sort of contractual thing that I'll sign with the Galaxy, but when the team awards are announced, I have to be Defender of the Year.
I don't think it's that shady. I can tell you that if you wanted to know what happened, you did come to the right place, because somebody here is obsessed enough to dig around and ask some questions, and while nothing's on the record, I can tell you that I have a theory. And that theory seems to hold up when I talk to people. And that theory is that Diego Polenta won a lot of second-place votes. All right, and so it went first place gets 3 points, second place gets 2 points, and third place gets 1 point, and you voted for 3 players. Okay, Diego Polenta got a lot of second place votes. You know who got a lot of first place votes and displaced each other? David Bingham, Jonathan Dos Santos, and Dan Steres. Those 3. So if you add those 3 together, they probably stole votes from each other. And so I know I had Diego Polenta as second. Actually, I think I had him as third. But even that is, he's in the voting. He was on everyone's ballot. That's probably why he won. It's because he was on everyone's ballot, and the other ones are hit and miss. I know a lot of people didn't vote for Jonathan Dos Santos for Defender of the Year, which was the clear-cut answer, and anybody who didn't vote that way got it wrong. If you voted for Dan Steres, that's great, because that probably would have been your second best answer, and that would have been good too. But I'm telling you that wasn't consistent across everyone's ballots as I've been talking.
I was getting a lot of advertisements from Russian bots to vote for Polenta, and I think the Electoral College has got to go in this fan voting.
So anyway, but yes, so Diego, so it was Zlatan Ibrahimovic Player of the Year, because I guess I didn't talk about this on Thursday because it came out on Friday. Zlatan Ibrahimovic Player of the Year, Diego Polenta Defender of the Year. You had Matt Lampson as the Humanitarian of the Year, and Zlatan Ibrahimovic won the Golden Boot because he scored 30 goals. There you go.
You know what? The Humanitarian of the Year is the best award. That's the one that I would want to win.
I mean, quite honestly, whenever you look at what everybody's accomplished, it's Matt Lampson who's making the biggest difference in this world.
Yeah, exactly. And he never even gets to play.
He doesn't get to play. And I still think that Matt Lampson has a great chance of being MLS Humanitarian of the Year. So we'll see. If anybody was going to have a chance of winning a major postseason award from Major League Soccer, it's Matt Lampson on the LA Galaxy. It's not Zlatan Ibrahimovic, who is going to finish second in voting to Carlos Vela for the MVP. I'm telling you that right now, so you can start your outrage. I don't have any inside information. I'm that smart. I know what's coming down the pipe here. All that stuff is having being said, but I thought, Diego Polenta getting forward was an important point, trying to get back to the game now after we sidelined off of Player of the Year and Defender of the Year. I thought Diego Polenta had his sort of restraints lifted, and he was able to get forward a little bit more. Having those 4 center backs, and they talked about Perry Kitchen playing center back in college and how that was really 5 center backs. It wasn't. It was a central defensive midfielder. If you want to talk about it, though, Jonathan Dos Santos is the team's best central defensive midfielder. So you had 4 players, you had 6 players whose primary job really was defense, even though Jonathan Dos Santos did get forward more than he probably normally does. And so then you had the remainder up there, with Ibrahimovic and Lletget and Pavone and Antuna, who were trying to run the offense, and that's why the offense looked anemic. It's not the same offense that we've seen from the LA Galaxy. It wasn't about getting up the wings and beating people. It wasn't about outside backs getting forward. It was about staying home and protecting the net, and they did that for most of the time. They gave up the 1 goal, because of course the Galaxy do, just to make things interesting, but ended up holding off for that win. So you could say whatever you want about this game. You could say the Galaxy didn't play well, but if you're really sort of looking at how Guillermo set it up, they played according to the game plan, and I think that's an important distinction to make, especially going into a game against LAFC, a game in which they cannot play this same way and expect to get any sort of results out of that game.
But what about this? Okay, they won the game. That was what they went out to do. They didn't. There was no style points. The idea is to score more goals than the other team and walk off with the win. It wasn't pretty. They were arguably outplayed. They were positively outplayed for a large stretch of the game, maybe arguably outplayed for 90 minutes, but they won the game and they played in a different style. And I guess my question to you is, what's better? You take a team and they play in one style, and you could say LAFC is like that. Atlanta United, they have a very distinct style. They play that way every game. They don't change their style based on the opponent. That's the way they play, and they're very successful at it. Or is a mark of a good team to do what the Galaxy did, which is totally switch it up, go in and play another game. And you can make the argument that that you're bowing to the opponents. You're dropping down to play their game, and you're letting them get away with that. You're letting them dictate the style. But my point is, the Galaxy have played a number of different ways. If you remember early in the season when Zlatan was hurt, they played a totally different style with Antuna up front. And they really didn't have a target striker. And then in this game, they played a defensive first format. And then they played other styles during the middle of the year. It seems to me that it's much more difficult to play a team when you don't know for sure what exactly what look they're going to give you.
Well, I think in this particular situation, it is, people want to criticize Guillermo for not being, not adjusting tactics and not doing something. I don't think you can say that in this game, because that Minnesota wasn't comfortable getting the ball. They talked about it during the entire broadcast, and it's one of those teams that they'd rather be a counterattack team. And so the Galaxy almost said, well, here's the ball, come get us. right? And you saw that Minnesota didn't have sort of the finishing, and with a Galaxy back four that was back there, with the central defensive midfielder like Perry Kitchen cutting off any of the lanes as well, because he had a couple great takeaways. With Jonathan Dos Santos there, that they forced Minnesota to have the ball and then to try to create something, and that's not what Minnesota does. Having said that, you also take away one of the Galaxy's probably best options, which is, going offensive, but they were able to turn it on when they needed to. So, yeah, I mean, I'm with you, Kevin. I think that you have to adjust. I think that almost giving the ball to Minnesota isn't so much adapting to what or allowing Minnesota to dictate anything, but it's playing to Minnesota's weakness, which was giving Minnesota the ball and asking them to come forward and attack. And the Galaxy, I guess you can say, relied on the talent that they had and knew that they were going to score a goal. That's not a horrible plan. And I don't know that it's a bad idea. I mean, I think that they can't play that way against LAFC. But I don't know that's a horrible idea not to do something similar, except that LAFC has shown time and time again that they're able to break down people who bunker. So trying to bunker or park the bus or do any of that stuff seems like that's not right, and that's not how the Galaxy have had success against them in the past. Now, before we get to that game, I want to get to a couple more things. I want to clean up this game real quick. One of the things is that the Galaxy did charter back to LA. I'm sure you saw a lot of the social media posts. The guys on a nice charter flight. They arrived a little after 1 a.m. on Monday morning back in Los Angeles. On Monday, the day we're recording right now, they had a regen day, so it was a pretty light sort of, come in, stretch, that type of thing. But I'll tell you right now, they're not going to get much training in this week. Guillermo said it, and everybody sort of understands it. It's another sort of recovery day on Tuesday. Really light training on Wednesday. The game's on Thursday. That's it. So this is going to happen pretty quickly as far as all that's
would you rather be the Galaxy who took 2 weeks off, played a game, and come back with short rest, or would you rather be LAFC who have now gone 17 days? This is the longest they've gone, I think, in franchise history. Between games, 17 days. As Tyler Miller told me a couple of weeks ago when this break started, he said, not only do we have the 17-day break that we have to work through, he said, but we're going to play a team that has just played a game 5 days earlier. For better or for worse, they may be a little tired, but they're a little bit more into their rhythm. Tyler Miller said, watch the first 15 minutes of this game Thursday, because if the team that has played a game, and he didn't know who it was going to be at the time, but it's the Galaxy, if the Galaxy come out in the first 15 minutes, that's when LAFC cannot be on their heels because they haven't played a game. They can't. The point is they can't build into the game. They can't warm up while they're playing. They need to come out fast from the start, and that's difficult to do when you haven't played in 2.5 weeks.
Yeah, you asked me who I'd rather be if I would rather be LAFC playing at home and only having to win 3 games to get to an MLS Cup. That's what I would. That's
3 games. Forget 3 games. It's one. It's 90 minutes now, or maybe 120. They can't look past this game. Just as the Galaxy struggled. I do believe the Galaxy struggled without looking past Minnesota United, because I heard too many players talk about, we really want to play LAFC, but we have to get past Minnesota United first. That told me that they were maybe looking past that game a little bit. That's not going to happen. I mean, neither team is going to overlook the other in this kind of a crosstown rivalry. But LAFC definitely is not thinking about winning 3 games. They're thinking about winning 1 right now.
I want to get to this, and I saw this on Reddit from Hugh from Reddit, who is called into the show and who is a wealth of knowledge on LA Galaxy stuff. He does a lot of the stats stuff that I do, and he thinks of things that I haven't thought of, which is great. So I give full credit to Hugh for this. I'm absolutely stealing this. He wrote in the Reddit post, he said, in the 24 years of Major League Soccer, the LA Galaxy has been in the playoffs a total of 19 times, which is a league record. On Thursday, the LA Galaxy will play in its 18th conference semifinal game, which is a league record. A victory will see them advance to their 13th conference final, a league record. Advancing there will see the LA Galaxy play in their 10th MLS Cup final, a league record. Winning would grant the LA Galaxy its 6th MLS Cup, which of course is a league record. So I just wanted to touch on that real quick, and now I want to get to some stuff that doesn't matter at all before we get to this LAFC game, because...
By the way, it's not stealing if you give the guy credit.
No, I told that's a steal. I didn't ask for permission. I mean, I gave him credit, but, it's totally a steal. It's okay. I think he'll be okay with it. He'll listen to the podcast. He'll yell at me or not, but I thought it was great stuff. All right. Now we get to the part of the show, Kevin, that matters about no playoff game. Doesn't matter about MLS Cup. Doesn't matter the playoffs. It doesn't LA Galaxy. It's not about LAFC. It's not about any of that stuff. But I need to get through this stuff so that way we can say that we talked about it, And
we have parts of the show. You said the part of the show. Yeah. We have parts.
It makes it sound like we have set segments or something. Usually it's just like
parts. This is the A block.
Yeah. Usually it's you and I right before we record saying, so what are we going to talk about? Nothing. That type of thing. MLS announced today that Sacramento will be the 29th team in Major League Soccer, and why this matters, 2 reasons. Sacramento's GM is former LA Galaxy defender Todd Donovan, who was on our show not too long ago. So congratulations, Todd, there, and on seeing that team now headed towards Major League Soccer. I think they start in 2022, if I remember correctly. So that'll put another team in California. That makes 4 teams in California, Kevin. So once again, I shout and I yell and I scream, and I told Todd this. I think he was all for it. I said, where's my California Cup? When is the California Cup? Well, you're going to have 4 teams. They play against each other. You can keep points, and there can be a trophy, and it can be shaped like a bear or something, or like the state of California, or something like that. But I feel like a California Cup needs to happen now. 4 teams, that's enough.
That would be great. By the way, you talk about Todd Donovan, and he's Stanford graduate. It was a big deal with the union and the last labor negotiations. Really knows his stuff. He is a good general manager. Will be a better general manager. But when you mention him being the general manager of Sacramento Republic, a soon-to-be MLS team, the Galaxy have really proven to be a training ground, a proving ground, and this was really true primarily under the time when Tim Lywicki was there. They saw people that they thought would have talent down the road, and they groomed them for these jobs. I know Tim Lywicki told me for a fact that that's why one of the reasons they traded for Chris Klein and kept him around and turned him into an executive. Now he's the team president. You have David Beckham, played for the Galaxy under Lywicki. He's now an MLS team owner. Greg Berhalter, another guy the Galaxy traded for. Bruce Arena turned him into a player coach. Then AEG sent him to Sweden, I think it was, somewhere in Scandinavia for his first coaching job. Now Greg Berhalter, former Galaxy player coach, is the coach of the U.S. national team. You have Robin Fraser, who played for the Galaxy about 10 years ago, now is the coach at Colorado. Landon Donovan is starting the USL team in San Diego. So this Galaxy Alumni Association, forget about what they did in their playing days. They're really making their mark as executives as well.
Yeah, it seems like you were right. By the way, he's Sweden. He went over to Hammarby, which is also an AEG, an AEG owned property. So yeah, all interesting stuff, and I think that's fun. There's talks about San Diego possibly being a team in the future. We'll see. That one still has a long way to go. But Sacramento becoming the 29th team in Major League Soccer. Now we also know that there's addition of 2 teams coming up, which is let's see. Can I remember them? I don't remember. Is it Nashville?
St. Louis is one, and Nashville's coming, and then Miami.
I think Nashville and Miami are coming in this year, and then I think St. Louis is after that, and then eventually it'll be Sacramento in there as well. So
one more, they got to get to 30. I vote for Honolulu for road trip.
Oh man, can you imagine an East Coast road trip to Honolulu, a 12-hour flight? That doesn't sound like any fun.
I'm just thinking about we could get the the Corner of the Galaxy jet corporate jet, and hop over there and watch some games.
MLS announced the 2019 postseason roster mechanism calendar, which sounds like a lot of stuff. Basically, what you need to know is that after MLS Cup on November 10th, the 11th through 13th, the trade window is going to open. That follows a 10-week roster freeze that clubs may sign players and trade players and do all sorts of fun stuff. Then on November 13th at 8 p.m. Eastern, so 5 p.m. Pacific, the trade window closes and the blackout period begins. Then they do all of the bona fide offers that they have to submit in order to see who's going to be who's going to be on the team, who's not going to be on the team. That's all contractual stuff. You have the MLS expansion draft on November 19th. Miami has the first pick, I believe, and Nashville is also in there. So it's Miami and Nashville select up to 5 players each. We will talk about that as we get closer to that, so don't freak out about that. Lots to talk about. November 21st, club deadline to exercise options. November 25th, end of year waivers. At 3 p.m. on November 25th as well, free agency opens, so that's a busy day. The 26th, you get the re-entry process, stage 1, re-entry process, stage 2 on December 3rd. I mean, the next thing you know, it's the start of a new season, except there's no collective bargaining agreement, so that there's chances that the start of that season is going to be able to play. I
did talk to the union, and when I talked to Mark Abbott, and the union side, they're gearing up for a strike. They've been getting their players or work stoppage, whatever you want to call it. They've been getting their players to save their money, and they've put together a pretty nice strike or package in case they do need to strike. But why have all those things been moved up? And when you started with the first date, MLS Cup is on the 10th. The 11th, the U.S. national team will gather in Orlando to play the second part of the Nations Cup, or Nations League, excuse me, where they'll play Canada and then Cuba. Why did, I mean, this has been on the schedule for a while. Why did MLS just decide to come in and squat all over that? And yes, I do have a personal problem with that because I can only cover 18 stories at a time, and it's going to be difficult. But also, you're going to have players playing for the national team that may be worried about their status. Why did they have to do it all so quickly?
Yeah, I don't know. It got moved. Obviously, I think they're trying to let the teams prepare as much as possible, and it always happened immediately after the Cup. But I mean, you're talking about a month earlier than it normally happens because usually we're around December 7th, and this time MLS Cup is on November 10th.
And it puts the teams that play in MLS Cup at a huge disadvantage, and maybe even the conference finalists, although there is a big gap in the conference final MLS Cup. These guys are dealing with having played in MLS Cup, the general managers, the coaches. If Guillermo's preparing a team for MLS Cup, I think the last thing he wants is for Chris Klein or Dennis DeCloso to wander in and say, hey, what do you want to do with Servando Carrasco next year?
Yeah. No, I mean, it's always been that way. I think we said it whenever Bruce Arena was winning MLS Cups, and then they would have to do this. I always think that they always have this stuff figured out way in advance because this isn't like a last-minute thing, and I don't think it's going to be a last-minute thing. So I always feel like the teams don't feel pressured. They already know who they're keeping, who they're not keeping by the time MLS Cup is being played. So I don't think it's that big of a stretch, but I agree, it does just sort of cram everything together, and I don't know why we can't just have a little breathing room in some of those spaces. So very interesting. All right, let's get now down to a little bit of the schedule that's coming up. And whenever we look at the bracket, everything that's sort of going on here, again, the LA Galaxy, the only lower seed, Kevin, to advance past the first round of the MLS Cup Playoffs. And so that means that they will have a game coming up on Thursday. We've already told you about that one, but what you need to know also is that on October 23rd, a day before the game, you're going to have, or day before the LA Galaxy take on LAFC, you're going to have Real Salt Lake traveling up to Seattle. That game is a 7 p.m. kickoff time on the Pacific time. If you look over on October 23rd, you have New York City FC joining the fray finally from Citi Field, a baseball stadium, outside of their normal baseball stadium at Yankee Stadium. So they're going to be over at Citi Field hosting Toronto FC, and if you're a Galaxy fan, you're rooting for Toronto. We already explained why. That game kicks off at 4 p.m. Pacific time on Wednesday. And then you have Thursday games are Atlanta hosting the Philadelphia Union. That game kicks off at 5 p.m. Pacific time, and then you have the LA Galaxy headed up to LAFC at Banc of California Stadium, a 7:30 p.m. Kickoff time there for that game on ESPN nonetheless. So that is the schedule coming up here, Kevin. A lot of fun soccer, I think, is going to be played on these 2 days again, so I guess if everybody, like myself, enjoyed the weekend, that you're about to have a very fun midweek as well, so should be a lot of fun.
Well, and that's all we got to talk about, right? That's the wrap.
That's it. We're done.
We're done, yeah.
Yeah. Let's preview this game just a little bit, looking at it, and obviously we have you who covers both teams, so I think we're in a good position to sort of take a good look at this game. The LA Galaxy at LAFC is a Thursday night kickoff, October 24th, 2019, 7:30 p.m. kickoff time, ESPN and ESPN Deportes. This game played at Banc of California Stadium, by the way, a place the LA Galaxy have never lost. A place against a team the LA Galaxy have never lost to, but a team, the LA Galaxy, who have never won at Banc of California Stadium either. And we talked about the break that is coming for LAFC. We talked about how the LA Galaxy have a short turnaround and won't get to train a whole bunch this week leading up to this game on Thursday night. This is an interesting matchup, and if it hurts your ears to hear, if you're triggered by this, I'm sorry. The LA Galaxy are facing the best team in Major League Soccer this year. In fact, they were one of the best teams in Major League Soccer history in terms of their finish, in terms of goal scorer Carlos Vela, 34 goals, hits a single-season MLS record. This team has been mostly unstoppable. Only one loss at home the entire year to Minnesota United. So all of these things, all the plaudits were well earned for LAFC this year. And now they go up against a team that, the LA Galaxy wanted LAFC in the playoffs. I'm sure LAFC would have liked to avoid the LA Galaxy, but I also feel like this is a great chance to exercise some demons. I was telling you before the show, Kevin, I don't know how many times you can slap a person across the face before they're ready to fight. And I feel like the Galaxy have been slapping LAFC across the face over and over and over again. And ultimately, I think it might be time for LAFC to actually fight back. This feels like it could be a resurrection game for LAFC, at least in my mind.
Well, a lot of things here. I didn't vote for MVP this year because there's a lot of other things in the ballot, and I didn't feel comfortable voting for best newcomer and defender of the year and all that. I would have voted for Zlatan over Vela if I had used my vote. Because, when you look at LAFC, they play pretty well without Vela, and they have other weapons. I think the Galaxy without Zlatan, they're kind of the Houston Dynamo at times. But in addition to Vela, you have Rossi had 16 goals. Vela and Rossi, another, in addition to the record for points, tying the record for goals with 85. Best goal differential in MLS history at plus 48. They also had the highest scoring tandem, Vela and Diego Rossi, with 50 goals combined. That's almost as many as the Galaxy scored as an entire team. So, and more than most MLS teams scored. They have a lot of weapons. And when I was looking through the history of this game, it's been very interesting because you talk about, when you keep getting slapped at some point, you got to get up. This is almost another advantage for the Galaxy, by the way, is you talk about the short week. If there's one team I don't think they need to prepare for, that they don't need to really do a lot of game planning for, I think it's the Galaxy. Or LAFC. They're very aware of what LAFC has. LAFC does not change the way it plays the same way every time. They know how they're going to play. So that's kind of to the Galaxy's advantage. The Galaxy are the teams that have played well and beaten LAFC this year, Minnesota, and then when Chicago came in and played them to a scoreless draw, they've actually used two lines of four men as on defense. So they've had essentially two back lines. They've had 8 people behind the ball. The Galaxy won't play like that, can't play like that. So that goes out the window. It's going to be a more wide open game. But in looking at the history, first game, remember LAFC up 3-0. They steal a goal on the Benny Feilhaber mistake. Then Zlatan comes in, has the tying goal, the game-winning goal. My point is, in that game, it really wasn't coaches. It was the players took over that game. The second game, remember LAFC is up 2-0 after 80 minutes. There's the poor back pass from Horta. Galaxy catch life. They wind up scoring 2 goals in the last 7 minutes, a 2-2 draw. Again, another game where the players took over. Then you had the first game this year, Zlatan with a hat trick, Vela with 2 goals. The rest of the players didn't even matter, it seemed like, and the coaches didn't matter. This was 2 Titans going, mano a mano. And then the last game, the one at LAFC, the second game this year, where Zlatan, got that fast start, scored very early. Pavone, I think, had a goal very early, right? That was a game, again, where the players kind of control. It's almost like the coaching staff doesn't really matter in these games. These are almost like schoolyard games where the players are just going to take over and do what they do. It makes it a lot of fun to watch, but I don't know how strategic it really is.
Well, maybe that works to the Galaxy's advantage. I think I got it right with my roulette wheel theory whenever it came to all those road teams losing ahead of the Galaxy, and I'm like, listen, it can't be black every time. It's eventually going to pop red, and the Galaxy got that pop red against Minnesota, and that's what will put them by. But I mean, I think my theory has to work against the Galaxy as well. I think that, whenever it comes to wide open games, the Galaxy have the advantage. And the reason they have the advantage is because Guillermo is a wide open coach, right? He's not going to tell the players to stop. He's going to tell the players to keep going, keep going, keep going. And when you look at Bob Bradley, Bob, in my opinion, looks like a guy who's more in control, who wants his players to play a certain way, who wants them to adhere to the game plan. And the problem with the Galaxy is they don't care about your game plan. They're just going to go in there and wreck things and do whatever they need to do. And they've had so much success against LAFC doing it. Granted, they've only won, Kevin, twice. There's been 3 draws in this series as well. But again, maybe that all favors the LA Galaxy. I just don't know how many times you can keep going to the well for the Galaxy. I mean, you talk about the amazing comebacks of 3-0 to 4-3. You talk about the Galaxy who can score and then give up goals. I immediately go to formation and who's going to play. I mean, in my mind, Rolf Felcher has to be back on right back side. You may even think about bringing in Jorgen Skjelvik on the left because the speed in this game is a killer, and LAFC is a killer with this speed. You're going to have to watch these guys in the way they do it. The Galaxy need to be more offensive. The only way that they've ever won these games is by outscoring LAFC. One of the draws that happened, that July 26, 2018 game, that was a 2-2 game. The Galaxy came back and scored 2 goals there it's sort of late that I remember, and that meant really... I was sitting next to Larry Morgan, not on Twitter, and Larry and I were talking about that if the game was 5 minutes longer, the Galaxy probably would have won that game because they just had all the momentum and everything was pressing forward. So, I mean, trying to wrap my head around this game, and not only what this game means for the LA Galaxy, what this game means for LAFC. I mean, the bragging rights for the LA Galaxy would be through the roof again if they were able to win this game. The plus side for an LA Galaxy team that can knock off the Supporters Shield, that can knock off the guys who are, the noisy neighbors across, all that is a plus, but you have to also look at this from the LAFC side. Again, they've been slapped across the face so many times, Kevin. They have to keep hearing over and over and over again that the Galaxy are in their heads, that the Galaxy have never been beaten by LAFC. You have guys who just got done playing a game in Minnesota already talking smack about LAFC. As soon as they're done, Ramon Alessandrini, Jonathan Dos Santos, they're ready. They're already jawing in this game, and they're ready to go because the Galaxy have nothing but confidence heading into this. When will LAFC finally react? And I feel like this is the game with all the pressures in it and all the things that could be that game for LAFC, that they come out and just punch back at the LA Galaxy.
Well, Zlatan was not even alive the last time LAFC beat the Galaxy. So, but the Supporters Shield, you talk about the Supporters Shield, and again, the season single points record that LAFC set this year, only lost 4 times all season. Only 3 teams since 2002 have won the Supporters Shield and MLS Cup in the same year. So that, again, is working against LAFC. You're right about Bob Bradley. He plays 3-dimensional chess. He is very cerebral, almost perhaps to the point of overthinking this. He talks about playing our style of football. He definitely has a game plan. The Galaxy, as we talked about, they freelance. And who freelances better than Zlatan?
Right.
He has 8 goals against LAFC in 5 games. He gets up for this game. It means a lot to him. And again, the idea of freelancing. You and I talked before we went on the air, and I guess we'll just go to this now. I like the Galaxy because I agree with you. I think if LAFC gets up early in this game, I think they're just going to keep pounding, and it could get really ugly. And it could get ugly because LAFC is really angry over the way the other results have gone. Remember, you talk about if a guy gets traded from the Dodgers to the Giants, there's supposed to be a rivalry. They don't care. They're going to go play. They just change uniforms. A guy gets traded from the New York Football Giants to the New York Jets. They just put on a different uniform and they play. This is a different kind of rivalry. I know it's only 5 games old, but only one player has worn both jerseys, and that's Bajo Husidic, who was in training camp for 1 week this winter with LAFC. What you have otherwise, you have Mark Anthony Kaye having his season ended in a rough tackle, I think from Perry Kitchen last year, ended his season and really hurt LAFC down the stretch. You have the El Munir case this year where Zlatan elbowed him, almost got a suspension, and El Munir missed more than a month. This is a very physical, a very intense battle. I do think that again, if LAFC gets up, I don't think they're going to take their foot off the gas. And it could get ugly. But I kind of like the Galaxy in this one because, as I've talked about all year, when Zlatan takes over a game, he's unstoppable. We saw him do that against LAFC a couple of times. And this is a game he gets up for. He's coming off his worst game maybe ever in MLS, certainly his worst game of the year. He's had a couple of clunkers down the stretch here. I don't know if he's tired, if it's age, whatever. But if he's on, I think the Galaxy could pull the upset here. It's a big if, but if Zlatan, they can't defend Zlatan, they haven't been able to do it yet. Zlatan could take over the game and the playoffs. If he's not on, if they have to rely on Pavone and Tuna and maybe try to get some more magic from Jonathan Dos Santos, then I think the advantage really swings to LAFC, who I know that you like going into this game as well.
Yeah, I do, and it just comes down. For me, I don't care who scores first. I think we've seen in all these games it doesn't matter. But I'll tell you this, that I think if LAFC gets on a roll, if they start picking off, if the Galaxy defense starts to panic, which we've seen them panic before, if it starts to panic, then you're not going to be measuring this game in, a couple goals. You're going to be measured in 5 and 6 and 7s. And I just feel like, it's one of those, you've seen it in the movies all the time, right? Like this kid keeps getting picked on, and then finally whenever he snaps, he goes berserk and, almost kills somebody. So I feel like that is, sort of what it is. I'll also say this, that I feel like LAFC plays into this trap all the time as well. They talk about how, the Galaxy are definitely in our heads and all these things, and I don't think that does you any good. I think you have to sit there and deny, no, they're not in our heads, and they're not going to be in our heads, and there has to be some sort of fighting spirit out of that. But, I think that both teams are going to be just talking globally for a second. And we'll take the global range from Jonathan Dos Santos talking about the world is watching this game.
In the world.
Biggest game in the world. But let's just put this within Major League Soccer. This is the biggest game in Major League Soccer history, and that comes from a person who has been doing a Galaxy podcast for since 2009. I get it. I'm biased on that. This is the world that I live in. I live in this Los Angeles bubble, this Southern California bubble, Kevin, where I get to see the games that get played, around the league, and I sit there and go, oh, Seattle, Portland, that's fun. I like to watch that game. That's cool. New York Red Bulls in New York City. I'm not watching that game, especially if New York City's hosting, because it's played on a dang baseball field and it's ugly. But that's not a big game in my mind, mostly because of that stadium issues. If it's played at Red Bulls, then it's more interesting. Okay, now we can pay attention a little more. You talk about all the biggest rivalries in Major League Soccer, and I think Galaxy fans like to pretend that this isn't the biggest rivalry they have. It absolutely is. It's the biggest rivalry LAFC has, and it's the biggest game in Los Angeles being played. And granted, you have a season opener for the Lakers, who host the Clippers, and that's a season opening game, but that's a big deal in Los Angeles. We all know that, and we know that the average ticket prices right now are higher for the LA Galaxy versus LAFC than
on
it
the
is
secondary market.
Yeah, on the secondary market.
They're Super Bowl prices now. They're over $5,000 resale.
That's crazy, and it's nuts. And Mike McGee tweeted out today. He was like, "I knew this game was happening. I think on October 7th or something like that, and I'm there for it." So Mike McGee bought his tickets. I think, Kevin, you said, "Why does Mike McGee need to buy tickets?" MLS, but Mike McGee has his tickets. He's ready to go. All those things. But I mean, how big maybe you have a better national feel for this than I do, because I'm telling you, I can't wrap my head or unwrap my head around the fact that this is the biggest game Major League Soccer has ever seen played.
Well, the resale, I think tickets were up right around $6,000 on the resale market today. And keep in mind that that's about more than three times what Laker Clippers tickets were selling for. Bank of California Stadium has 22,000 seats, more than 22,000 seats, about 22.5 now. The Staples Center has 18. So there is less tickets or less volume for the Laker Clipper game in an NBA town. I mean, LA is a basketball town now, yet the tickets for the bigger stadium are going for higher. And people are going to say, well, LAFC fans, they're really not fans, they're selling their tickets. These are club suites. These are tickets down on the field. These are probably corporate tickets for the most part, somebody trying to make back their season ticket price or their sale. It's a Thursday night. I'm not going to put this on LAFC fans. I don't think this is people in the 3252 selling their tickets. And we don't know who they're selling them to. These resale tickets may be sold to other LAFC fans. So I'm not going to get into that discussion right now. But another thing is the Galaxy, something that swings maybe to the Galaxy side a little bit, in addition to their hyper confidence going into this game, they're healthy. It looks like Joe Corona, maybe it's still a little bit banged up. Pontius dressed, he was there. I know Efraim Alvarez is away, but if Joe Corona is available for selection, they'll be the healthiest, I think, that they've been all year. LAFC, I haven't heard about Mark Anthony Kaye, who came up with a hamstring problem in the CONCACAF Nations League game against the U.S. playing for Canada. He is central to that midfield. If he doesn't play, then Lee Win would probably start in his place. But up front, LAFC is going to have a little bit different look that I don't think the Galaxy have seen. Diamandi is back from his substance abuse absence. And he will be back. He'll be available to play as a center forward. Brian Rodriguez, who I don't think the Galaxy have seen yet, gives them a totally another dimension. And I would guess maybe that Diamandi would start, and then maybe Brian Rodriguez would come off the bench. He is kind of their Pavone. He's a guy, he's very creative, very unpredictable, very energetic, very fast. Again, I liken him to Pavone in that you'd never know what he's going to do and what kind of impact he's going to have on the pace and the play of the game. The Galaxy are not used to that. That's maybe the one wild card. They may not have Mark Anthony Kaye, but they will have Brian Rodriguez and Diamandi.
Yeah, like you said, Galaxy getting fairly healthy, which I think is a plus for them. I don't know whether the short week is going to be a plus or a minus for the Galaxy. I would expect it's a minus if everybody was exhausted as they said they were. So all that coming in, LAFC with a minus, perhaps not having played. In my mind, and I don't think I've gotten one of these right yet, but in my mind, this seems like it's a bridge too far for LAFC. This is going to be it. They're going to make a stand here. If the Galaxy can pull it off, you're talking about bragging rights from now until it feels like the end of time for the LA Galaxy. And you talk about the Battle of Los Angeles and everything. I'll tell you what, if you're a neutral in Los Angeles, let's say you live in Los Angeles and you're a neutral and you don't like either team, or maybe you're not that into it, if you could get a hold of a ticket and your buddy says, hey, I have an extra ticket for this game, you're going to go to this game. I think it's the most hype game. I think it's going to be, one of the most watched games. I know I've seen other fans already talk about how they're going to watch this game. Not LA Galaxy fans, not LAFC fans, talking about Atlanta fans, Seattle fans, Portland fans, even Minnesota fans are like, okay, now I'm going to watch this game. This is it. This is the time. So I think viewership and everything else that you're going to be looking at for this game, Kevin, it can't get any bigger than this. So I don't know what else you can ask for a playoff matchup, except if this was in the Western Conference Finals, which the Galaxy blew a chance at whenever they lost to Houston and lost to Vancouver at the end of the season. So for me, it doesn't get any bigger. I don't know how to sort of quantify what this is, and eventually this game will probably be played at the Inglewood Stadium sometime down the road, where 65,000 people will be in the stadium, and it'll be divided down the middle between LA Galaxy fans and LAFC fans. That's just my hope. I know lots of people disagree with that. That's fine. I don't really care. But I mean, that's where I feel this is building to. This could be, Kevin, if we talk 5, 6, 7 years down the road, this could be one of the biggest rivalries in the world. And it certainly feels like it is at least the biggest rivalry in the Western United States that I can find in my mind.
So you're going to put it up there with Liverpool, Everton, City United?
Eventually, it could get there. It could get. I mean, again, it comes down to why it's Boca and River, right? It's not necessarily that you or I watch any of the games in Argentina, but if Boca and River are playing and you happen to catch it on TV, you're going to stop and you're going to watch that game.
Let me add this to that.
Okay.
I see your point, and I don't necessarily disagree, but it's still a young rivalry. But let's throw down the gauntlet now. Let's not let it become River Boca. Let's not throw things at buses. Let's not
Yes.
do what happened last year. Let's not fight. It is a soccer match,
Yes.
and you are going to have your team that you like, LAFC or the Galaxy. They're both great teams. They have great players. If you're an LAFC fan, come out and watch Zlatan. If you're a Galaxy fan, come out and marvel at Carlos Vela. And cheer for your team and be passionate. But, I hope you're right. I hope this becomes one of the greatest rivalries in soccer. But I hope we also show some of those other leagues that you can do it without having to beat the crap out of the guy sitting next to you just because he has a different color shirt on.
No, I think I hope that it went without saying that I expect people to behave that way. I know it doesn't always go that way, but I mean, that's another thing that's part of this. That's the ugly side of this that there's no room for and there shouldn't be. But we'll see how it all gets handled. I'll tell you, it's going to be, not only are you going to have people who are going to have to take like a half day off from work because you're going to have to leave at noon in order to get to this game in time for traffic and everything else, because Thursday is the worst.
Trafico. It's supposed to be traffic.
It is absolutely. It's going to live up to its billing here. A Thursday night's the worst time. Playing at 8 p.m. probably would have been better, but national TV wants it at 7:30 because you're not going to kick until like 7:50.
With ESPN, they're going to do a long pregame show. By the way, speaking of this, Larry, not on Twitter, sat next to you at the first game, the 2-2 draw last year at Bank of California, and told me a story. And tell me if this is right. He said that sitting in front of you, there was two couples. One dressed in LAFC gear, a man and a woman, and the other couple dressed in Galaxy gear, and they both had adult beverages with them.
Yes.
And they imbibed throughout the game, and they were talking and joking, and I think they hugged each other when they met before the game. And as the adult beverages and the game started to take root, they were actually punching one another, right? Physically striking one another by the time the game ended.
No, I think whenever that eventually turned the way it did it was the LAFC couple fighting with the LAFC couple between themselves, and the Galaxy couple fighting between the Galaxy couple. So I don't think they actually went fisticuffs there. It was a weird turn of events. It was very interesting sitting there that night. I don't know how to explain it, but I would say I didn't see any LA Galaxy LAFC violence, at least not that I remembered. And in fact, whenever I left that game, I said, "Oh, everybody got along." Not realizing what had happened.
Can't we all get along?
Yes.
I do know that LAFC for the game that was there this summer added like hundreds, not dozens, but hundreds of off-duty police officers and private security people, and they surrounded the away supporters area. On Christmas, I think what's called Christmas Tree Lane or whatever, the grass area out front.
Gotcha.
That I don't know. I'm glad they did that, but it's also sad that they have to do that.
It is what it is, and hopefully everybody maintains their cooler heads this time. But I can't imagine that it's going to be any less intense because I don't think it gets any less intense for this game.
No, intensity's great.
Yeah.
I love intensity. I just don't like pounding people.
Yeah, I know. It's okay. You ran track. I understand.
Yeah, I'm a vegetarian and I ran track. How could I be more wussy than that?
All right, the LA Galaxy taking off and heading on the away trip there to Banc of California Stadium Thursday, October 24th, a 7:30 p.m. Pacific time kickoff. Banc of California Stadium, ESPN and ESPN Deportes is where you can find that game. All right, is there anything else you want to touch on before we get out of here? Because I think we're done. I think we got everybody ready for this game.
Did we talk about the game on Thursday?
No, I'm sure we left that out. Quick reminder, or at least programming schedule for us here at Corner of the Galaxy. Our next podcast will be on Friday night. So the day after the game, win, lose, draw. Wait, you can't draw. So win or lose, single elimination. Another thing, you know what, I did forget. Was I wanted to quickly tell everybody about yellow cards because people are asking about yellow cards and where it goes. Yes, you can be suspended from the playoffs if you get 2 yellow cards in 2 games. So if you get a yellow card in the first game, like Diego Polenta, like Polenta, Gonzalez, and Alessandrini, those are the guys who did it. If you got a yellow card in that game and you get a yellow card in this game, you will miss the conference finals should your team advance. However, if you get by this game and then you play in the conference finals, those yellow cards do not carry over to MLS Cup. So basically the yellow card accumulation is just for these first 2 games, and if you get 2 yellows in these first 2 games, then you would miss the conference finals should your team advance. If you get a straight red card, regardless of what game it is, you're suspended for the next game. So if you get one in the conference finals, you get a red card, you're suspended for MLS Cup. If you get a red card in MLS Cup, you're suspended for the first game of the season. If you get 2 yellow cards, that would also mean a red card, and you would get suspended for the next game, and that could carry over for the MLS Cup as well. So the accumulation doesn't affect MLS Cup, but straight reds or 2 yellows that equal red or that type of thing would also affect MLS Cup and how that goes. So just to keep an eye on it.
That's a very good point, and I'll tell you why. Because this game is going to be physical.
Yep.
LAFC did not play a playoff game yet. They come in clean. They don't have to worry about that.
They have nothing to worry. They cannot be. Right. None of their players can be suspended for MLS Cup for yellow card accumulation.
And the Galaxy have 3. They're not going to be red. They're not going to be sent out of this game. But they would, if the Galaxy advanced, they'd be lost. This game is going to be very physical. I think there will be a lot of cards, and especially early in the season, not so much lately, but very early in the season, LAFC was baiting a lot of opponents into red cards. And Seattle, the 2 players got red cards. Seattle finished the game playing with 9. I think that maybe the first dozen games, there was about 6 or 7 that the other team finished shorthanded because LAFC had baited them into a red card. They're very good at that. So the idea of cards, it's really something to watch. I guess maybe I'll go out on a limb and predict it may have something to do with the outcome.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's the thing. If you're the Galaxy, you probably can't worry about that, right? You can't sit there and say, okay, well, if we lose Diego Polenta for the conference finals, but we're at least in the conference finals, then it probably doesn't matter. You don't want to change the way you play as an LA Galaxy player. You just want to go out and play, and you have to deal with the consequences that come in that Western Conference final should you get past LAFC. That's just something you're going to have to deal with. I don't know that you want it to affect you. Yes, you want it in the back of your head, but you don't want it to affect you in the way that you play.
Who's the referee? Do we know?
I don't think it's been released yet, or if it has, I haven't seen it, so I don't know yet.
I mean, hopefully, at this stage in the season, obviously they're going to have a quality ref, but the referee figures into this too, and I'll tell you why, because MLS is telling them, or they know, look, this is a very emotional, very physical battle. The fans are going to be into it. And that is going to affect the way the referee calls the game. Either he lets things go early because he doesn't want to antagonize the fans, and it becomes just a pure brawl, or he calls it so tight because he doesn't want to inflame the fans that cards are being handed out for ticky-tack things.
It's going to be a fun one. Again, Thursday, October 24th, 7:30 p.m. Kickoff time. We'll see everybody there. I'm planning on being there. I will be there. I think Larry Morgan Not on Twitter will be there as well, and we'll have your coverage for that game. I know Kevin's going to be there, so we got you covered from all sorts of different angles. Again, next podcast coming up on Friday night. All right, Kevin, anything else? You good?
I think that's it.
All right, we're going to get out of here. If you're looking for Mr. Kevin Baxter on Twitter, let's try that again. We're going to do this. Let's be a little more, I think, emphatic as my soundboard just completely dies here. Hold on, I got this. 100%. You just hit the restart button, you do it again, and you say, if you're looking for Mr. Kevin Baxter on Twitter, what you want to do is head on over to @KBaxter11, where you can find him. Of course, go to the LATimes.com where you can find all of his soccer writing covering the U.S. men's national team, the U.S. women's national team, soccer all over the world, and of course the 2 teams here in Los Angeles as well. So he will be a busy guy coming up this weekend. Again, LATimes.com, at KBaxter11, where you can find him. If you're looking for me on Twitter, at JGuesman, JGUESMAN, and of course at Galaxy Podcast. And then please head on over to cornerofthegalaxy.com. We'll get you previews. Larry Morgan will be out on training at Tuesday, which is media availability. So look for an article from Larry on Tuesday, and we'll get you ramped up and ready to go for the game on Thursday. All right, that does it. LA Galaxy in the conference semifinals against LAFC at Bank of California Stadium coming up on Thursday, October 24th. It's the big one. Everybody be safe, and we'll catch you next time. For Mr. Kevin Baxter, I'm Josh Guesman. Have a great one, everybody.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy From the Box podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast, and be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. And for all of your independent LA Galaxy news, discussion, and entertainment, including this podcast, head on over to cornerofthegalaxy.com. Fans, thanks for listening. We ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye, everyone.